Hello, one and all, and welcome to Office Hours, where we've been answering your media and tech-related production questions every single day since March 25th, 2020. Cindy Drozda is from Erie, Colorado, and is our reader today. Cindy, what have we got?
Well, our first question for today happens to be from me, Cindy Drozda in Erie, Colorado. And I'm wondering, has anyone used an NDI device like ZowieBox for HDMI 4K 30 video capture? What are your opinions on reliability and quality?
Cool. And Cindy put a link there for anybody in the chat. Ronnie Hofsoy is going to start helping you out here. Ronnie?
Yeah, I haven't used that specific gadget or converter. I've used numerous other ones and been doing that for years and might say ages. One that constantly is coming up as a good alternative is the AJA UTAP, which is known for pretty good colors and being kind of a good alternative to all these. Reliability is also something that has been discussed for a good time. And I'm not sure that the ZowieTech is the best one in reliability, but I would also have a look at other stuff like the KiloView. I have an encoder here connected, which is called E3. Of course, that can be used as maybe I misread the question about the USB. Yeah, I did. So this is a really good encoder for single stream. It has two inputs, and it can encode to more than just the NDI. It can do a lot of other stuff as well. But reliability is something that is important for big broadcasts, and I'm not sure if I would go with the KiloView either. And the next thing is that should you really be doing NDI now when there are other ways of doing this? We see that Dante video is coming, or Dante audio video is coming for full, and this is something that we are really looking into in our studio. We use NDI. Not kind of in the middle of something, so going from one place out to the broadcast. We are trying to stay away from NDI, but of course we use NDI for stuff like monitoring displays. We use it for confident displays, etc. But we are kind of staying away from putting that in the middle of something that is really important.
Jeffrey Powers has some additions. Jeffrey?
So I do have a ZowieBox, and I use it on a regular basis. Right now, what it's doing is I'm using it as a confidence monitor for my multi-view for my ATEM Mini, because I record individual stems that way through my cameras. I originally bought this box because what I do in my live shows, my live events, like when I go to record bands, is I'll do a 4K 4-plex. So they're basically going to be four 1080p cameras that are set up, and then it records 4K 30 from there. And it does a great job. On Ronnie's point that it's not the best box, but it is the cheapest box. And the quality for being the cheapest box is actually pretty phenomenal for what it does. So there are some caveats to it. Like, for instance, it's hard to set it at 4K 30. So if your camera is not doing exactly 4K 30, it might dumb it down to 1080p. Excuse me. And so you'd have to put a converter in between there to get it to work. I've had that problem happen a couple times, but it really depends on the camera there. But for the most part, yes, you can do an NDI out. You could record right from the box as well. You're recording to, I believe, if it's a TF card, so you'll want to have a good quality TF card in there, and it'll do the job for probably what you're looking for.
Thanks for the question, Cindy. Now we go right back to you. Next question.
And our next one comes to us through the QR code from Ben in Thailand. Thinking of purchasing 3X remote camera. CRN500 for live conference event, as it's getting difficult to get camera operator at certain season.
Yeah. Courtney Gooden, do you have some suggestions for Ben?
Well, Ben, I don't know what the supply is like in Thailand, but I just went to check on this camera. It's a pretty hefty, expensive camera. It's $5,799. It's very capable. It's got a great lens on it. It's got a heck of a lot of connectivity on the back of it. It's got Ethernet, and it's got XLR audio inputs, which you rarely find on a PTZ camera, and HDMI and all that stuff. The problem being is that I went to Canon's website, and you look, and it says right here, out of stock, and it says it's non-refundable, which are two dangerous things to have on such an expensive item. It may be, they may have sold out of all their stock. So if you want to use this particular camera, it has all the inputs you need. Look around for a rental house that may have them in stock. And if it's just a single event and you're not really deep pocketed, you might just rent them for that event. Find somebody who has the CRN 500s in stock and rent them, I would suggest.
Jeffrey Powers, your thoughts?
Call me. The CRN 500 is a great camera. Don't get me wrong. It's poised for an educational background, and the one cool feature about it is it. Let's say I had a whiteboard sitting right here. I could walk up to the whiteboard and start drawing. I could create this zone, and the camera will focus in on the zone and actually clear up whatever's being written on the whiteboard. So it's a really decent camera for that. The bigger problem is you have the camera. You can buy the cameras, but are you a camera operator for those cameras? PTZ cameras are finicky at best. A lot of them, their motors. There's one I'm looking at right now that its motor I wouldn't trust, especially if you're moving cameras around. If you're setting up a camera for like a one-on-one interview, and really all you have to do is set it and then let the interview happen, then a lot of cameras will do that. But the internal motors on that is a very big key. Canon has really good motor system in there, don't get me wrong. So it'll do the job. You'll want to have a camera operator that understands the camera and be able to give you the best situation there. I don't know what this camera is being used for. Are you using this to capture an on-stage event? Are you doing a one-on-one interview for a live stream or anything like that? Those are some of the keys that I would look at. But yeah, if you want to contact me, this is a type of live production that I have done in the past, and I can definitely come to Thailand to do it.
There you go. Next question.
Next up is Vic Hernandez in Springfield, Missouri, USA, asking, for video conferencing uses like office hours, ideally speaking, how far away should an Insta360 Link be from the front of my face?
Jeffrey Powers is going to help you with this one as well. Jeffrey?
And this is also going to be dependent on where you put the Insta360 Link. The most ideal position is about arm's length away from you, trying to be as eye level as possible. Now, some people will question, do you bring the camera up just a little bit more than eye level, a little bit more than down level, down than eye level to get that perfect shot? And the answer is whatever you feel most comfortable with. I move my cameras up and down all the time to try and get that sweet spot. So when people are looking at me, they don't see like a tired me or because if the camera's too high, then your eyelids, in some cases, eyelids will actually look like somebody's sleeping. So you just have to ask yourself which position works for me. And then, of course, if I've got a screen in front of me, how that works. If you put the camera on top of you, it's still going to be arm's length because these cameras only have a sense, an optics that does digital zoom and not optical zoom. And if you don't have to do any type of digital zooming to this, you're going to be in your best situation, especially if the computer resets and then all of a sudden the camera position goes boom and back to nothing. So keep those things in mind when you're doing that. But yeah, arm's length is probably the key.
Ronnie Hofsoy.
Yeah, so the camera is being a 4K camera, and it's actually an arm length. So it's right below here, and I can almost touch it when I'm stretching out my arm. So that gives me a kind of similar field of view that you can see now in the other camera that is right behind it. And it gives you some small possibilities to adjust it a little bit wider or a little bit thinner. But what I always tend to do is to control what is on the sides of you in the back, because if you move it a little bit further away, you have to zoom it a little bit further in, and then you can get a little bit smaller field of view, which can make the back a little bit smaller. So that is what actually drives the positioning for me. I could, of course, have it closer to my face. Then I would have to zoom a little bit more out, and I would get more of the background as well. So depending on how wide your background is in your at your desk or wherever you are doing this, you have to take that also into account. If you are using this for zoom is 1080 typically at the maximum, and the camera being 4K makes it possible to zoom in quite a bit actually, and don't have less resolution because of that. So I would say just from an arm's length and up.
Oh, there you are. Hey, don't forget, we're always taking your questions. That's what runs our entire show. And as a matter of fact, I was just looking at the chat, and they're talking about the International Space Station and some other things in there. So, and the latency back and forth. There's always a fascinating discussion going on in the Q&A. So if you'd like to get into the system, all you have to do is go to officehours.global/join. We'll send you an email within a day or two. And once you've done that, you can ask, vote on, and discuss the questions in that live show community in real time. That's officehours.global/join. Okay, back to our questions. Next question.
Here's another one from the QR code. Roger Martin in Tonto Basin, Arizona asks, does OBS bring in Zoom ISO so that I can record and stream on OBS? And if so, how? Thanks.
Jeffrey Powers is going to help you out here. Jeffrey?
So a lot of the interfaces, excuse me, there's two ways to do it. You have NDI that you can bring it in, and then a lot of these interfaces like vMix and Wirecast have the ability to bring them in because they've linked the software with Zoom. And I still believe that it's using some sort of NDI to do that. OBS doesn't have that ability in there, but there are some workarounds, and I wouldn't be surprised because OBS is an open system, so I wouldn't be surprised if somebody made something and you could find it on GitHub. So I would check the repositories, I would check the discussion threads to see if there's anything out there that allows Zoom ISO to go into OBS, because it can be done. It's just a question of if somebody's written the code to do it.
Ronnie Hofsoy.
Yeah, the alternative way to do it if you don't want to mess around with the OBS is if you are on a Mac, you can use something like Mimo Live or similar. You also have Zoom ISO, which is an app by Liminal ET. So that is basically a Zoom company nowadays. And that Zoom ISO will produce also still on the Mac, will produce NDI feeds that you can consume inside OBS. So there are workarounds, but it seems that you have to have an interim software in between, or a software that entirely replaces OBS. So I would take a look at something like vMix or maybe Mimo Live.
And in the chat, there's another couple of suggestions. Daniel Partridge says Siphon is what I've used in the past. Very reliable. Siphon out of ISO to OBS. And Guy Cochran notes Mimo Live also does this. So there are a couple other suggestions. Next question.
Next up is J.J. McKenna in Scabo, California, asking, did anyone happen to see Mr. Fenwick on Netflix yesterday?
Wait, what? Chris was here saving my bacon in the morning when yesterday I had that connector go bad, and I figured out eventually that it was a Thunderbolt cable, but I didn't see Chris. Was he on Netflix yesterday? Does anybody know anything about this? Okay, well, we'll have to dig in deeper and figure out what's going on here. JJ, you're in the background here. If you can toss more information We would love to know more about this. And for right now, we'll go to the next question.
Here's another one for me, Cindy Drozda in Erie, Colorado. I want to capture one 4K 30 camera, HDMI to USB, for input into vMix. Compare Inogeni, Magewell, and Epiphan for reliability and quality. And are there others?
Okay, Jeffrey Powers is going to start helping you out here. Jeffrey?
Sorry, I went towards the Fenwick thing, and I did find something. We'll talk about that later. But so the capture into 4K and then out to USB, using these different programs is our systems will really work for you. Going to USB is going to be I always try to avoid that because that's going to crush your blacks and possibly give you a bad look. And trying to readjust the cameras, that's always not fun to do. So that's what I would suggest not doing USB if you can. But that's where a capture card would come in and into the PC. But if you're using a laptop and USB is the only option you have there, then you have the right laptop, then maybe you could get a capture card inside of a enclosure that would go through Thunderbolt, not USB. Big difference there.
And Ronnie Hofzoe.
Yeah, I was. This was the question I was starting to ask earlier today, but I'm going to just show this. So this is one of the items that comes up in these types of discussions when you are forced to be using UVC or USB interfaces. And the Roland has been known for giving kind of good colors and stable to use. It's Connect and it just works. It's a little bit long in the tooth maybe, but I would take a look at that. And I know that Magewell is also a really popular one that has been used for kind of a long time. Epiphan is probably a little bit more expensive, I would guess. And the Inogeni is, I think it's a Canadian product, if I'm not wrong, and has not too many very negative connotations for it. So I'm not sure if this is, and of course you also have the AJA U-tap that I mentioned before. That is also a good way to do it. And I guess this is a Windows machine, so you can play around also using the Ultra Studio recorder from Blackmagic. If I can have it to zoom, this is Thunderbolt thing, so make sure you have a computer that actually supports Thunderbolt. I don't think this is going to shift to USB if the computer is just a USB machine. And as Jeffrey already said, purchasing something that is UVC today could prove that it's a bad investment for the future. I'm thinking of getting a plug-in or DeckLink card into something like an OVC interface. OWC is probably a more solution for the long run, and will give you other options as well. And of course, one input is just one input. Having a small DeckLink card with up to 4 inputs, for instance, will give you much more leverage when you're adding equipment to your solution.
And in the chat, Brody Hefner weighed in and said, the Insta360 Link is so small that I find it can be placed with a 90-degree USB connection to keep the cable out of the way, right in front of a 24-inch monitor for a Zoom meeting, with the participant Zoom window right behind and around the camera position. A poor man's Interatron for a good eye line. So I love little tips like that maybe you can do something with things you already have. Also, reflecting back, there's some chat about the Chris Fenwick thing, and I guess according to some of the people who are chatting there, he's in the documentary series on Netflix. Amy Bradley is missing. So I think I saw that on my Netflix feed, that it's kind of up on the billboard now. But did anybody see anything more about that? Jeffrey, you were looking into that. Did you come up with
No,
anything?
I checked Chris's Twitter feed, and he was talking about how he was part of the issue. Let me call it up really quick. When Amy was abducted, he was part of that whole event right there. He was interviewed by Netflix, and then and on July 14th, they said that the edits were done and it was good to go.
Oh, well, there you go. So if you want to see Chris Fenwick's lovely visage on a big streaming service, I guess this week is your chance, or the next few weeks. Who knows? Maybe it'll stay there for 5 years. But anyway, always good to see Chris doing something. Next question.
This one is from Kyle Nesta in Philadelphia. When two presenters are on camera together and there's a significant height difference, what is the best way to boost the shorter presenter? An Apple box or a larger platform?
Yes, any port in a storm. Courtney Gooden's been on so many sets over the years. He's probably seen this happen with major actors 1,000 times. Courtney, what's your advice?
Well, it depends. If it's a feature film, you know what they used to do for Alan Ladd, who was very short, and if he had to appear in a scene with John Wayne or somebody who was very tall, they would actually dig a trench for the taller actor to walk in. And if it was a walk and talk, the taller actor would have to walk in a trench next to Alan Ladd, who could walk on the regular ground. But typically in Hollywood, we have what used to be called a man maker, which was turned out to be sexist because a lot of women are shorter too. So a tall maker, that is what Chris Fenwick has dubbed his Apple boxes, which is an Apple box. Or sometimes they will build a platform if it has to be a walk and talk with several Apple boxes and a piece of plywood. The problem is you have to build it so that the taller actor can walk alongside of that actor without bumping into the box or platform. So it has to be carefully arranged in the path or next to the person. And you also have to, if there's any walking on or walking off, it looks strange for them to walk into the shot and then suddenly one gets a lot taller. That doesn't work very well. And if it's a woman, 6-inch stilettos kind of helps a lot.
I still don't understand how women can sometimes do that, or men for that matter, for all I know, and not break an ankle. Those things seem so scary to me as a guy who's never worn one. I will say that it's fascinating to me that somebody probably grabbed on an early set in Hollywood an actual Apple box, tossed it down, it worked, and then somebody started saying, give me an Apple box, give me an Apple. And here we are 50, 60 years later, and that name has stuck. And for those of you who have ever rented a grip truck, quarter apples, half apples, full apples are almost every grip truck I've ever seen. And you just get used to the jargon of the industry. Jeffrey Powers, you wanted to race in here too?
Yeah, I think Tom Cruise invented all that. He's kind of like Keith Richards nowadays.
Sylvester Stallone invented it.
Sylvester, yes, that's another one. But the other thing, another easy thing to do is simply put them in chairs, because a lot of times that resolves a lot of height differences, especially tall chairs rather than floor chairs, like a gaming chair or something like that. And if you can adjust it, then that helps out, because if somebody's taller in their torso and lanky that way, then you can adjust the height of the chair so that you get to that eye level from there. But if you're standing, Apple boxes are a good way to do it. If you're standing and walking, unless they're wearing stilts, then you're pretty much out of luck.
My first rule that I learned on set, and it's still with me today, is that it doesn't have to be real. It just has to look real on TV. When I was talking about TV era. And this is one of those things where any manipulation in the storm, if you're trying to get a balanced shot and the subjects are not balanced, you balance them. Jeffrey, you had a return you wanted to do?
Actually, I got one more thing. Hold on. These things work really well, too. In fact, in my studio, I use a taller chair and a sit-stand desk. So I will use this to rest my feet upon when I do have a chair, so my feet don't get, my ankles or my knees don't start to hurt.
Yeah, there you go. I used to have a couple of great director's chairs from a company called Hollywood Chairs in Hollywood, and that was one of the nicest things about them is they had a perfectly proportioned footrest built into the director's chairs. They were a pain in the butt to haul out on set, but boy, once they were there, everybody tried to find a moment to steal my spot in my director's chair. Courtney Gooden?
Just a couple of thoughts. If you are going to build a platform or put them on top of an Apple box, you might have them take their shoes off, because stomping around on top of a wooden box can make a lot of noise, and you can actually hear the footfalls on that. So have them take off their shoes and just go with an Apple box and a pancake to compensate for the thickness of their shoes to bring them up to the correct height. Or a lot of times we will actually build a platform and cover it with a furniture pad and nail it down so that they can't trip over it, because tripping and falling off the box is a liability.
The sound department approves this message. Next question.
Here's one from Vic Hernandez in Springfield, Missouri, USA. Bill, kudos on the timely resolution of yesterday's technical issue. Did you use instinct, experience, or a set troubleshooting methodology to resolve?
I used Panic. Panic is my no, I'm just kidding. Actually, it's interesting. I don't know why, but when I read this, I thought one of the things I think that's a test of whether you can do live stuff is how you react when things go wrong. And I'm always reminded of that quote that I read as a young man when I was first reading Dune, and Frank Herbert had that line about fear is the mind killer. If you succumb to fear, if you're one of those people when the adrenaline hits, you kind of shut down. This is a tough business because the adrenaline is going to hit. To specifically answer your question, for me, it's dropping back to trying to visualize the signal flow and figure out where it could be, because sometimes the more you get used to solving problems, the more you realize that's got to be in my video chain between this and that. There's no other place that would cause that kind of problem. That just comes from the experience of doing things. And then you go to the most likely things. And so for me yesterday, it was the most likely thing is a loose connection. So I literally followed that track and I unplugged and replugged everything. Now, it's a little more difficult now that we have all these computer video over IP things than it used to be in the days when your XLR audio signal, you plugged it in, it was either there or it wasn't instantly. Now you have the circumstance where you pull out a USB-C that is carrying a Thunderbolt signal and the computer loses track of it. And when you plug it back in, sometimes it takes a little bit of time for that to reinitialize, to get its ACK back and forth done and get the signal to the monitor you're looking at. So you have to be methodical. You have to go through that. This happened to be one of those times when literally it was the connector at the end of a USB-C line and one specific one that was feeding from a port of my computer to the ATEM Mini. And so it took a while to track it down. And literally you're just trying anything you can think of, going through it. You're checking menus on the software that's supposed to link to it. And this case, it turned out to be a cable issue. And I think we've all been there before. So I just highly suggest that you do your own wiring. I think stepping into a system that somebody else has wired, unless those engineers are around to help you, you really have to get in there and learn this stuff. And most of the people on the panel here, that's why I think we know how to fix these things, is because we've been that person who goes out and tries to figure it out and track it down step by step. Algorithmic thinking, which is basically the computer thing of this step, then this step, then this step, then this step, really stands you in good stead when you run into those things. So I'm lucky that I found it when I did. I wish I had found it 15 minutes earlier, but such is life, and the show must go on. Next question.
Paul Valhus in Austin, Texas is here with us. For the pick of the week in a recent Extra Hours, Karl picked PIC, Canon's PowerShot PIC PTZ. It was $500, now $200. Do you see any use for it? This question wasn't meant to promote plosives. Here's the link.
Karl picked PIC. Yeah, that is a difficult one. Courtney Gooden, start us off.
Well, if they picked it for the plosives, it would probably be Panasonic. Panasonic.
Well done, sir.
I looked at this. It looks like an awfully good value. I think this is kind of competition for the Insta360 Link. It is a webcam that is a PTZ and does face tracking, that kind of thing. But it has a couple of interesting features. It's about $200, so it's similarly priced. I guess it has batteries, because in some of the pictures there, they show it operating wirelessly. It does say it works wirelessly, but only on Windows 10. So you Mac people, I guess, will have to look elsewhere. But its specifications, it has Bluetooth connection, Wi-Fi connection, and USB-C connection. But it must be getting power from somewhere. So I think there must be batteries involved.
Jeffrey Powers?
There are batteries involved, and I'm trying to find what the milliamps are on the batteries, but yeah, it's comparable to like the OBSBot Tail Air. The biggest advantage that it has over the Tail Air is it's got a 3-time optical zoom and a 4x digital zoom, so you could actually have it a little bit more than arm's length away to get it to get a good shot and be able to zoom in on it and go from there. I think they're noticing the price drop, dramatic price drop. I'm thinking that this is pretty much going to be getting ready to go end of life. It'll still be a great camera to use, but it doesn't have some of the features, the creature comforts that some of these cameras are really putting out. Like, for instance, this is the Tail 2 right here from OBSBot, and it's got AI tracking in it, and it's got NDI in it, and it's got a lot of other stuff. As Courtney said, the wireless doesn't work for a Mac. It does work for a Windows, so I'm assuming there's a piece of software that that connects to that to make that work from there. So if you're getting it, it's probably a decent camera to use on an everyday thing. If you're a backpack streamer or something like that, it's easy to put into a bag and walk away. And yeah, it's definitely meant for the vlogger out there. So great deal, and I'll definitely take a look at it. I saw it at CES a few years ago, so I'll definitely be taking a look at it again.
Next question.
The next one's from Rajan Shandil in Los Angeles. Bill, Michael Horton of LACPUG retired. Can we talk about his contributions to editing and the editing community for over 25 years?
Certainly. This is very personal to me because I've known Michael for 25 years or more. I was there actually. Michael and I were walking through NAB at one point when he said, I'm thinking about doing some sort of little gathering. Maybe we could do something next year. And that's what turned into the Los Angeles Final Cut Pro Users Group originally. He did change after maybe 12 or 13 years to the LACPUG, the Los Angeles Creative Pro Users Group, to expand beyond a focus just on Final Cut. It was a heck of an evening. I'm going to see if I can pull a connection, and I'll show you a little bit of the crowd who showed up. Let's see if this works. A lot of people, whoops, that's the wrong connector. I have to use a different, anyway. It's been an interesting ride. And the very first time we did this at NAB, the Super Meet, which some people know Michael from, the two things that are kind of signatures in Michael's computing group career as opposed to his acting career, because Michael was a Los Angeles actor who had a good deal of success over the course of the years. He's in most of the Star Trek movies. He's in he was Jessica Flesher's kind of main nephew on the Murder, She Wrote series, had a recurring role there, many things. So he was a successful Hollywood standard actor for years before he did this. But when he started the original LAFCPUG, the Los Angeles Final Cut Pro Users Group, there were maybe 15 or 20 people showed up. You flash forward 5 years or so, and there were thousands of people showing up at NAB to this signature event that used to always happen on the Tuesday night there. And a lot of industry luminaries gathered there. It was one of the big things to do on Tuesday night at the show. And some seminal moments in kind of computing history. That was the show, amidst a lot of turmoil, where Final Cut Pro 10 was introduced to the world. And there's a lot of stories behind there. In fact, there's actually a documentary about that evening when everything kind of went crazy. Too much of a story to talk about here, but all the editors, and Los Angeles is one of the hubs in the country of film and television editing. So over the course of the years, serious luminaries, people who are editing major motion pictures, would come in and do presentations. It became a gathering place for the creative community around digital production. I met a lot of my best friends and the people who have influenced my career tremendously. I'd get over there as much as I can. I probably went 15 or 20 times to the Los Angeles meetings. When I moved here from Phoenix, it was easy to hop on the train and go see the show. And every time I met amazing people and got to go out. We all went out for pizza every time afterwards. So I'd be sitting there next to somebody like Dan Liebenthal, who was editing Iron Man that morning, and then we were having having beers at the pizza place afterwards. And you just don't get those opportunities. 5 or 6 of the people that I know who are probably the most successful in the industry now, I got to know through the Los Angeles Final Cut Pro Users Group. So it's been a force for the course of a long time. It was a huge thing that he started. He ran it magnificently for the course of these 25 years. Sadly, his son, who was an editor in Los Angeles, was not interested in putting in the kind of ridiculously hard work that Michael did to make this thing go for a long period of time. So I went over for the last night of the Final Cut Pro Users Group, and a huge group of people, and I'm very quickly here trying to get one of my phones to show the picture, see if I can get to it, to show you the crowd that showed up. It's really very impressive, the number of people who showed up just to honor Michael for all his years of amazing work. It was a huge group of people, and everybody, there we go. There's the post. Let's see if I can pop that in. Will that come up? Yeah, let's get it big. Whoops, can I do something? Let's try it this way. So that's just a look from the back of the audience, the number of people who showed up at the Gallery Theater in Barnsdale Park to say goodbye to Michael for all those years of tremendous effort. And in that group, there were a lot of A players, people from Apple, people from Adobe, people from all the people that Michael has helped over the course of the world. And, you know, one of the most interesting things that he did with this is he always said the most important part of the meeting, he would stop the meeting kind of for the break, and he would say, literally just turn the person next to you and shake their hand and say hello. And if you know the person next to you, do it to somebody in the back row, because the point of this is to make connections. The point of this is to meet people. The point of this is to expand your group of humans that you can call on. And I think he was extraordinarily successful in doing that for many, many years. So we're all sorry to see that group go. And Michael, thank you for all your work. Ronnie, you had something to say about this?
Yeah, I just experienced, I just want to say I experienced a few super meets. And boy, this story about him is like being back in that room, doing all that stuff that he was a specialist of, making people start to talk to each other, etc. I wish we could do this still in the communities and culture we see are changing a lot now. And I just those super meets are still. Visually and experienced as a really, really cool place to be. I really miss it.
It was legendary. You know, the raffle, he used to have this amazing amount of chutzpah to ask companies for these huge prizes, and we would give away like $20,000 editing rigs to the winner of the big raffle. And I was lucky because I'd known Michael for so long. I used to be the guy who used to pull the tickets from on stage and announce the winners. And to see these people just jump up, and you could see that they were feeling, I won this. My life could change because of this, because they'd win some camera or an editing rig or some software that was really expensive and they couldn't get it any other way. And you could just see people having so much fun. And we did have a lot of fun through the course of those years. So thanks, Michael, for all the years. All right, enough time on that. Let's go to the next question.
Our next question is from Paul Ball, who's in Austin, Texas. SmallRig's $59 RM25C LED video light is pocket-sized. How many would it take to light you up decently for an office hours Zoom meeting, and what would be the mounting and placement? With a link.
Ronnie, start us off here.
Yeah, it's kind of a cool light. I'm pretty sure my colleague on this panel would go a little bit deeper into that. So I would take the second part, how I would mount it and how I would use it. I would actually just get one of these or one for each of these. I have numerous of these SmallRig arms. These are the ones that are, you can find it on the site. It's really a cool arm, and it's lightweight, and it's powerful enough, and it can actuate in all different directions. It has kind of 3 types of knees. It can bend virtually anywhere. And the way I would mount them is I would have 45 degrees out, 45 degrees up on each side, maybe a key light or kicker behind me, and maybe, and this is just, I'm not sure if this is good enough, but have it in front of me to have light also hit the lower part of the picture. I have a dark T-shirt and a kind of big beard that covers up a lot of the light coming in from the top. And of course, the softbox included with the light is not that big, so keep it as close as possible. I would suggest not as far as away as possible.
Courtney Gooden.
Yeah, I looked at this. The main thing that I don't like about it is it has a fan in it. And if you're going to mount it on top of a camera or anywhere near a microphone, that may be a problem, especially if you're going to mount it on top of a handheld camera for doing man-on-the-street interviews, something like that. In a quiet room, you might be able to hear that fan, especially if you're using a microphone that's on the lamp itself. It's battery powered, plus it works off a USB-C, so for power supply. It has about a 3100 milliamp hour battery. It's $60, but during Prime Day, this was turned up in my feed from Amazon, which is very similar. It's a little bit smaller. It's RGB. It has a 97 plus CRI, so good color rendition when you're on the white mode. It has all these different effects that you can put it on, and it's magnetic. It has magnets on the side, plus it has a cold shoe mount on the bottom, so you can mount it on the top of a camera, etc. But it has magnets on all three sides, so you can stick them together side by side into a little matrix. I don't know. I don't think it's quite as bright. It only has a 2100 amp hour battery, but it was $15 on Amazon Day. I almost pulled the trigger on things for doing the background lights, which I have over there. So it'd be good for that. It has a lot of effects modes. I think the other one does too. The SmallRig does too. Little scene modes, they call them, where it can be a flickering light, or it can be a flickering firelight or candlelight, or police outside your window flashing the red and the blue and the red and the blue. So you can think you're about to be picked up by the police. Something scary this time of the year in Los Angeles. But it also has a little LCD display, a little display in the back. I don't think it's LCD, but I think it's some LED display in the back that shows you your battery level and your brightness level, adjustable in brightness. So look at those two choices if you want to. The other one is magnetic mount, but just on the back, I think. But it does have a fan on it. And the other one, the SmallRig one, is, I think, a lot brighter. If you're going to use it as your key light, I would point it at a white card or something to spread it out some, because it's pretty small. And use that for your front light if you're going to use that as a key light. It'll be a little more flattering once you spread that out to a larger area.
Yeah, I'll second that thing. The problem for me with small things is they become point sources, and you'll get bright high spots on people's faces if you're using it for an on-camera light for something like that. So yeah, Courtney's exactly right. Put it in a box or bounce it off a white card or something like that. Spread it out a little bit. Next question.
Tony Mobley in Noonan is wondering, what is the best way to keep audio equipment clean? Vacuum or compressed air?
Jeffrey Power is going to start us off here. Jeffrey?
I'm not a big proponent of any device that is mechanical, that sucks or blows onto a mixing console. Bottom line. So I don't like vacuums or compressed air. If you use the compressed air can wrong, you can actually freeze the faders or dials, and all of a sudden you run into a lot of more problems. And the other thing is that usually the biggest problem with audio equipment is not as much the dust as it is the schmutz that's on your fingertips every time you go to touch it, and then a vacuum or a compressed air won't blow that away. What I like is stuff like that. These are like a simple camera pen that has a very fine brush on one side, and also it's got this little guy right here that helps just to clean the extra junk off of there that a vacuum or a compressed air would not be able to get into. I also like the Alcohol wipes, the ones that will evaporate after time. That way you don't get liquids getting into your system, and run it from there. And of course, if you're doing anything with liquid, you always want to unplug your equipment to do that type of cleaning. But a brush is the better thing to do. You can also use painter brushes if you want to.
Ronnie Hofsoy.
I have another approach which starts as soon as the equipment is unpacked and put where they are supposed to be, and that is protecting them from dust, for instance. So in the studio, we always have equipment sitting on desks, etc., and we have a small piece of tablecloth or actually real covers that covers them up when we don't use them. And as Jeffrey just said, the most of the thing that are put onto these types of equipment is your fingers. So keeping them clean, and if you are in a dusty environment, and this also depends on what type of equipment and what type of environment you have them in. I'll be back with that later. And keep a small microfiber cloth. Have it a little bit moisturized, and be careful to clean everything. And make sure that you don't have things falling into the cracks, which are faders, etc. And just make a normal, good clean with no soap, etc. Just clean water, and do that eventually if it's getting the dust. For other equipment, like on big stages or outside equipment, of course, you have everything like dust storms hitting your equipment or expensive mixers, etc. And for that, there are a few options than actually going to use either vacuums or pressurized air. You need to do that sometimes. Professional equipment as amplifiers, etc., often have a dust filter built in. So you just replace the filter or clean the filter. You can use water or wash it for most of the professional gear. And of course, when you don't use it, make sure you cover it and protect everything from rain.
Courtney Gooden.
Yeah, well, I'll concur on the covering it up. And upstairs in my shop where I have, a whole bunch of synthesizers and computers and keyboards and all that stuff, I take an old fitted sheet, launder it really well, and spread it out, and it has the elastic ends on it, so it covers everything and kind of tightens itself down around the edges, and that keeps the dust from falling out of the air on top of the equipment. And you'd be amazed. It also keeps, if you have equipment in your home where you do any type of cooking, especially if you like to cook with olive oil or anything like that. Let me tell you, olive oil, there's a funny thing that happens with olive oil. When you cook with it, a lot of it vaporizes into an invisible vapor and goes out into the air. And then anything with a plastic surface on it has a static charge, which will attract that vaporized oil, and it will form a nice scum on the surface of your electronic equipment that is very hard to clean off. You have to use some type of TSP or some type of oil-dissolving solvent to break that olive oil up and get it off the surface of your plastic-coated equipment. So bear that in mind. Also, using a vacuum cleaner. Never use a vacuum cleaner that doesn't have a container in it, a bagless container in it, or a bagged container in it, where, if you're vacuuming off your mixing panel and there happens to be a loose knob, guess what? It's going to go up into the vacuum cleaner, and you're going to have to dig it out and find it later. So, I kind of am against vacuums. I also get these cheap brushes you can get at Home Depot. The thing is, you got to bang on them and push them down on something and bang them back and forth a lot before you try and use them, because if you get a loose bristle comes off that brush, it can fall down inside a slider and it will ruin your whole day. So you might use a more quality brush than the $1.15 when I pointed to. Camel hair brush or something that's a little better, but a 2-inch brush does nice to collect the dust and gets between the knobs. That's the hard part to get to. That and the disinfecting wipes, the ones that are designed during COVID that were so cheap that you could get them in connectors, because the disinfectant is usually alcohol, so it evaporates quickly and it doesn't attack the surface of the stuff that you're wiping it off with.
I buy makeup brushes for that purpose because most women don't want hairs out of their makeup brushes. I find they're a little more stable than the paint brushes. Harshit Trivedi.
Yeah, so I'm using an electrical, you plug it into the power outlet. It has connectors to it. So it's an electrical blower. You have high speed and low speed on switch on the back. And then it comes with little extensions or little, as we were talking about, brushes and stuff. So depending on what you're working on, I wouldn't mess with cameras with some of this stuff because I don't have a camera. And I know camera lenses can be really finicky, but you have like little brushes where you add this little attachment to the unit. And if you needed to brush out, let's say your motherboard or internal, you have a CPU or a tower or something like that, this works really well for that. I open up my laptop case and I will usually blow out the fan. So when you do blow out the fan on laptops or anything else, make sure you hold that fan down. Do not let it spin, otherwise you're going to damage your fan. So I usually hold the fan down, turn it on low speed, and just kind of get it left, right. Keep it on an angle so it's either coming onto my desk or, as Courtney said, have some kind of bed sheet or something so you capture all those dust bunnies or whatever pops out. And I think your laptop and your other machines will thank you for that.
Next question.
Up next is Paul Ball, who's in Austin, Texas. Cerro Gordo, California has been the location for 9 famous movies. Can you name any of them? And what other movie locations stir you up?
Yeah, there are a couple of places around the Los Angeles area that have become famous for that. Cerro Gordo, I think the first time I saw it was in the Steve McQueen movie, Nevada Smith. It was out, I think, in the late 60s. But it's been in a lot of movies. I mean, it was kind of a close Western ghost town to Hollywood, so I think there were a lot of films done there. Courtney, did you ever work there, and what ones do you remember?
Can't remember Cerro Gordo. Of course, there's the famous Vasquez Rocks, which are
the Vasquez Rocks from all the science fiction movies. Great place.
Which have those jagged rocks that are going at an angle, and you recognize it's been in every Western during the 50s and 60s. There's that one. Of course, there's Griffith Observatory, which appears in Rebel Without a Cause and appears in several other movies. So that's always been kind of a Los Angeles landmark location for people to shoot at. And then Lone Pine. You'd be surprised at all those Westerns from the 40s and 50s that were shot in Lone Pine, California, which is got a lot of mountainous pine forests up there, and it's a lot of rocky, craggy areas to shoot in, little box canyons, things like that. A lot of Westerns shot in Lone Pine.
Yeah, I just found, I did a quick search and looked in there's a whole site called, on YouTube, a cold film, I guess, called Hollywood in My Backyard, 9 Famous Movie Locations. So I think there's a lot of places that some location scouts go, hey, you need to film that kind of thing? We always go over here. It works. You know, there's probably no park service getting in your way, or otherwise the landowner is probably willing to work with you on things like that. That sometimes makes the difference. Next question.
Here's Douglas Carmichael asking, a majority in the U.S. House has backed the AM for Every Vehicle Act, even when most of Europe has abandoned the ban. Do you think a law like this is needed? With a link.
Jeffrey Powers, what do you think?
If we didn't have it, then zombie movies and other types of dystopian horror movies would probably be in peril because they couldn't go to a specific radio station to get some sort of signal. Yes, this is AM or amplitude modulation. Radio is very much needed because it has a longer throw than FM radio. It's public, unlike a ham radio or anything like that, where you have to really try and tune in a signal. Ham radios, of course, work on the same idea, but it's general broadcast. And it allows people to get emergency information out. And you can build a tower, an AM tower, fairly within time, and it can be low powered. So there's a lot of advantages for AM radio. So having that in the car, I don't see why that would be a problem in any way, because if you need something emergency band, then AM radio is there.
Ronnie Hofsau, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I live in Norway, for those that doesn't know. We got rid of FM many years back. So we're using the digital version of Europe, which is called DAB. And there are legislation in Europe that says that all cars should at least have DAB as a radio receiver, and most of the countries in Europe is digital either way. So we have lot of digital stations. So the number of stations that are possible to receive in these units are much larger than the previous bands in FM. And traditionally, we never used AM as normal radio. We used always FM. And there is and I'm a little bit divided here because I'm pretty sure that emergency communication is much better in FM or /AM type of technology. The reach is easier, and of course the argument that goes in between here is all networks that are connecting these transmitters around the country is digital either way. So if there is some hacking going on, we're living next to another big country that are known for interfering with signals. And the thing is that as long as all the towers are getting the signals digitally, the end technology is kind of, you don't have to choose another FM or AM technology. You can have it digitally, and of course the reach, as was mentioned from Jeffrey, is an important part. But the coverage of the whole of Europe is really good, and almost everywhere it's high quality digital signals. And the thing is that people are using phones now, so every emergency message is going on phones either way. So I'm a little bit divided. I still think it's there could be situations where AM or FM is still needed, but we are moving on, and digital signals are everywhere either way. So we can't stop it.
Courtney Gooden.
Yeah, the problem with phones is their sites, the access point sites, require a landline backhaul that can be interfered with, and power supply failures, things like that. And it's multi-point. In other words, to cover a large area, you need a whole lot of different sites, each with its own power supply, each with its own backhaul connected to the main network. So AM radio originally was set up as the emergency broadcast network back in the days in the 40s and 50s, because in the United States there were several AM radio stations designated across the country as clear channel stations. And those AM radio stations had the right, there's nobody else on their particular frequency across the United States. And in an emergency, they can crank up the ERP to 50,000, 80,000 watts and cover half of the United States from a single transmitter site. So you only have to keep that single transmitter site powered up, which they all had, diesel generators on. All the clear channel stations have emergency power supplies on them. So in a pinch, in an emergency, which is what these are required for in cars, you might be in your car driving away from whatever emergency there might be. Who knows? Typhoon maybe. So you might be in your car and you want to be able to receive a signal. And the problem with digital broadcast signals is it may be clear. That's if you're getting all the packets. But if you're on the fringe of reception for that transmitted signal, it's going to break up and be unintelligible, whereas AM degrades gracefully so that, you may hear a lot of static, but you'll still be able to make out what they're saying rather than having it just disappear completely if it's not getting enough packets to reconstruct its audio. So that's one reason that AM is still used. The problem with modern day cars is they went to the CAN bus, which is their method of controlling the DC accessories in your car with a network that goes over the 12-volt power supply cables. And this creates a lot of AM radio interference. So a lot of modern day cars, they have to go to great lengths in order to put noise suppressors on all of the wiring all over the car to be able to receive AM without a lot of static in it, because the static is coming from within the car. Watch out.
There's a horror movie plot if I ever heard one. One of my young man jobs, I worked down on the Mexican border at X-Rock 80, or actually I was across the border on the El Paso side. El Paso and Juarez, sister cities. And there was a station across the border that was one of those AM stations in Mexico where your radiated power was commensurate and related to how much money changed hands to the owners of the station. And X-Rock 80 used to cover from Canada down to, I think, probably Panama or something like that. It was a huge monster station. It was an interesting operation because the DJs all worked on the American side, and then they would tape things 24 hours in advance. And then a guy named Ishmael used to get in a white panel truck and drive the tapes across the border for the next day's programming. It was very romantic and interesting, and I had a great time working down there for a short period of my young life. But I do think that now most of this generation is not very conditioned to going to their radio to AM. I don't know very many people under 40 who really spend much time listening to AM anymore. They're almost all on their phones for content consumption, and I think that's a trend that's going to keep going. So I don't know. Yes, if the EMP happens and we lose all thing, AM radio may be the only thing that survives if it's a tube radio. But outside of those apocalyptic nightmare kind of scenarios, I'm not sure whether AM radio is collapsing and collapsing. It seems to be over the course of years. I mean, it's gone from music to mostly talk radio now, and it's kind of the fringiest of talk radio. That's where I see AM radio being most used. So who knows? My brain has moved on from most radio services to getting all my content off the internet one way or another, for better or worse, and it may be worse. Next question.
Richard Wells in Tacoma, Washington asks, any suggestions for batch file renaming or metadata editing? With many thousand files and strange naming conventions, looking to streamline the workflow. Windows, please. Gratitude, office hours.
Well, metadata is mostly just plain text. And so if you get a good text parsing system, you can usually change metadata as batch processes. And I would highly suggest you look into doing that. Courtney, you want to do a quick little thing on your suggestions, and then we'll wrap things up?
Yeah, it depends on the type of file that you need to replace. To read the metadata, a lot of times you have to have a specialized program that will read metadata. I wrote one many years ago. It's still available, called BWF Widget for broadcast wave files, that looks into the broadcast wave files and lets you edit the metadata. It'll also batch rename files to a scene and take number that is stored in the metadata within the file, and it then can create a file name for that based on time code or scene and take number and metadata, that stuff. And there are a number of other if you look into it, metadata editors. I don't know whether, and only a few of them do batch renaming, so you have to kind of be careful about that. But there are a variety of numbers of them out there. If you search around for batch metadata editor for media files, primarily for media files, so MXF files and MOV files and BWF files.
All right, we're going to let everybody go now. Thank you so much for being here today. We appreciate your help. Again, if you're one of our 3 constituency groups, people who ask questions in the show, our producers, thank you so much for all your great questions today, as always. If you're a panelist, thank you all for being a panelist. In fact, thank our panelists who's all showed up over the course of all these almost 5 years now of doing this. And for the final constituencies, the people behind the scenes who do this show in the background, all of our technicians, all of our friends who touch this program from all over the world every single day, thank you to you very much as well. That takes care of it for today. I'm looking for the controversial, and I can't see one, so I think maybe something has gone in the process. You're going to have to do without it today. We'll get it back to you tomorrow, but we've traveled a long way to get all these questions in, and we thank you for each and every one of them. We will see you all tomorrow. It is Wednesday. Don't forget, that means David Paskin has his show, The Rundown, tonight on our network. So tune into that.
Thursday. Yeah.
Thursday?
Today is Thursday.
Yes, today is Thursday. He's on Thursday. Did I say Wednesday? I don't know. I'm lost. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.
No bananas. Everybody sing now. We have no bananas today.
That's a cool song.
That goes back to vaudeville, doesn't it? Oh my God, that's an oldie.
Vaudeville tune.
Thank you all for being here today. Appreciate it.
All right. Adios.